So I just got the engine back together, and just to add insult to injury here, not only did I find out I have to take the engine back apart to replace the pump, but the pump that I got for it was a total piece of crap. So one of the bowl holes for the timing cover doesn't line up very well anymore, and the fasteners, the studs that came with the pump to bolt the pulley back on, are too long. So after just figuring that out and finally getting this thing back together, I spent more time working on bolting the pulley onto the water pump than I did assembling the whole thing. Actually, I got it back together in like 20 minutes. But filled it full of water, it's not dripping. Everything looks to be fine with that. So I'm gonna try to carry on. I'm gonna try to push away that frustration and move on to something new, get started, break ground on a much larger project, which is intercooler piping. So a couple of challenges we need to overcome here. Actually, it's pretty much all challenging. So here you see the intercooler that we ran in the Z for the last couple of years. And as you can see, this has been boxed in down here because this actually used to be in and out on the same side. It had another port right here that I cut out, boxed this in so that I could make it a single pass intercooler. So this is actually connected all the way through here, this whole tank, and then mounted this up on top of here. So as you can see, this metal work went very badly. I was struggling with shielding or contamination for a better part of that project, and it was a huge pain in the ass. And for some reason, I believe it's gonna go much better this time. So what I'm having to do now, first of all, we're going to a 3-inch inlet and outlet, and I just know how disappointing it is to watch me be cheap and struggle with the water pump thing. And now I'm gonna be cheap and struggle with the intercooler thing. But if nothing else, I'll get a little bit better at welding. I do think it's gonna go a little better. I think I have gotten slightly better at this craft than I was before, mostly because of tooling. The biggest struggle with welding aluminum is just getting clean cuts and having everything butt up nicely. If you have a gap you're trying to weld with aluminum, you're gonna have a bad time. No matter how clean the material is, you're gonna have a bad time if you're filling in gaps. And that's a lot of what this is. I was cutting things with Sawzall, and you get a dirty old cut and it gets filthy and it's not straight, and there's just a lot of difficulty with that. So with our newest player here, the bandsaw, we can make much better cuts. It would be even better with like a table bandsaw, but this is what I got. So we're gonna be able to make better cuts. They're gonna be cleaner. And then I bought this contraption. It's just ridiculous. It's a little tiny belt sander. You put this little belt on, you use a grinder to like spin it, and I gotta still assemble it. But basically we're gonna be able to clean our metal nicely with the belt sander, make decent cuts with that. And really the difference between someone who can get by welding like myself, except for, that example. But I also welded these, I did those too. The same guy did those welds. But the difference between someone who can get by welding and someone who can excel in very nice welds is really the saw and like the perfection of the cut. Because if you can just have two pipes that butt perfectly up together and they're nice and clean, then really welding's not that hard. So I'm gonna try to prove that I've gained some confidence here, but here's the challenges that we have to face. So we're gonna be lopping this whole big ugly elephant nose off of here, because the reason we did that is because obviously on the L series, the intake and the exhaust are on the same side of the engine. So we're gonna be chopping that off. In place of this, I'm gonna be using this little cast aluminum elbow, and it's just kind of come off the top where that was. I'll have to try to open that hole up best I can to try to get the 3-inch diameter that I need to even be able to benefit from having the larger intercooler piping. We don't want the intercooler to become a restriction. But another challenge I'm gonna have is, I hate this. This is so stupid. Look at this thing. So the outlet of our turbo is only 2 inches. This is a 67 millimeter turbo with a tiny little compressor. I don't even know what this is or why I bought it. I'll be honest with you guys. I really just didn't want to run nitrous when staging like I had to with Ursula. I wasn't sure what a good size would be. 67 is a pretty decent compromise compared to the 72 millimeter that was on the Lexus. So I saw a T4 with a 0.82 AR housing, turbine housing, and a 67 millimeter inducer on the compressor wheel. And I thought, okay, that's a small step down from the 72 that was on Ursula, which had the same 0.8 or similar AR 0.82 on the back housing. So I'm like, okay, so it's just a slightly smaller compressor. Maybe I'll be able to stage a little better with it. Plus, I spent a lot more money on my torque converter for this too. So I'm hoping the combination of smaller turbo, better torque converter, and I got VVTi that I'm going to be tuning in at some point when I can. I thought maybe I could get by without doing nitrous, but then the turbo got here and I'm like, wow, this thing looks really small, like the frame of it. Like the wheel's pretty large, but the frame's really small. I'm not sure what that means, but what I do know is it's got a 2-inch outlet. So I'm gonna need to be running this adapter on that. Obviously we're gonna have to chop this and maybe change the angle of the compressor so that we can get to a 3-inch pipe out here. The reason I wanna run a 3-inch pipe is because I don't wanna have to do this again. This is a one and done deal. I can upgrade the turbo later, go with, finally put a nice FP unit on it once I figure out what size I wanna use. I didn't want to buy an expensive turbo for this experiment. I just wanted to buy the cheap eBay piece. I'll get an FP later on when I figure out what size I want to use. But I have to run that this way, and I got to cut a hole right here to make room for a pipe to go through. Intercooler will be here with my just 3-inch, with that 3-inch elbow. They'll meet up here, go to the intercooler, and then out the other side to the throttle body. So we got to cut the body. We got to cut the compressor. Find an angle to weld this on for the outlet, and weld 2 different ports onto the intercooler. And then we already have an opening here, obviously, and have that go up to our throttle body. And we're going to be connecting everything with HD couplers. There'll be no silicone couplers. It's going to be all HD couplers. I used the same brand of eBay coupler on the Lexus, and they were awesome. I didn't have any issues with them. You don't got to worry about couplers popping off. It's all real serviceable and nice. It looks nice. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So it's going to be a whole lot of welding to do. But enough talking. I'm going to go ahead and hack this thing apart and try to make this into something usable. So I got it just kind of resting in here now. I welded this little J-pipe to it and welded that little elbow to it over there. So as you can see, it's welded. That's all there is to say about that. Had some struggles on both of them. Just dirty materials, my excuse as usual. Anyway, so this is already kind of pointing up here towards where the throttle body normally goes. And y'all remember my shiny black throttle body? Well, I have successfully ruined it. I chopped off about, I don't know. I tried to be smart and try to be clever and chop them at an angle, but it didn't work. And so I ended up just having to cut it flat. But that's what used to be on the end of this thing. I got all the powder coating or anodizing or whatever off of the outside of it, and on the inside too, so I can get ready to weld my HD coupler to it. And so that's what these boys are right here. So one of these, this one here with the grooves, will get those 2 O-rings that you can probably just barely see right there. And the other one will go on the other pipe. One hand. So this one will have seals. It fits into here. Boom, then you got a clamp that goes around them and holds them somewhere around here. Anyway, so this is the one I want to use on the throttle body. Honestly, I didn't want a black throttle body. Unfortunately, all I could find was a black throttle body. The Z I bought, it's the same unit, but a little smaller, and I was able to get it in aluminum colored. This time, not the case. So anyway, that's what I'm working on now. So I'm gonna pop this thing off for now, get all of this cleaned up really nicely, and man, I'm gonna really try to put just a nice weld on this. Y'all, I wish I would have recorded more of what I just went through for the last hour and a half or so. I went from being 100% sure I completely ruined this throttle body and needed to order another one to being ready to paint it and put it on the car. Not sure if this is word to the wise or if I'm just doing it wrong, but I don't think you should try to weld on aluminum that was anodized. And I've heard this before from somebody, I feel like, but even if you scrape all the color off of it, like anodizing, sinks into the surface of it, and I just don't know if the metal's ever right again. And I just welded my adapter for the HD coupler onto my throttle body, and boys, it went so bad. Like I'm talking like bubbles, big black bubbles coming up. Like the metal was melting and pooling together, but it's just in the worst way you could imagine. And it looked so rotten. And then I'm just like, well, it's ruined now. So I just kept pushing along. I welded around the whole thing with this nasty black, I wish I would have taken a picture just for laughs. But so once I got it fully welded and I just looked putrid, I took my grinder, or really my cutting wheel, and I just started smoothing it. Just taking that whole black outer layer off, because whatever this junk is like floats to the top, right? So I took the entire layer, like cover off of the horrible weld I just made, and just kind of exposed some porous, like aluminum colored junk. And then I welded over it again, just adding filler where I needed it, like anywhere big bubbles and cavities would open up, I'd add some filler, went all the way around it again, and still had some couple little black balls that I had to burn out of it. But then I just kind of started spot welding with no filler, just burning the junk off, went around the entire perimeter, and now it looks great. I got it cooling off right now in my patent pending welded parts cooler. That's it right here in the cooler. Getting some of that Lexus runoff. Not sure if you're supposed to do that either. I always do. And aluminum doesn't take very much to cool down, so it just takes a few seconds. But let's take a look at this bad boy. Now, mind you, I still got to wire brush it. But, look at that. That looks fine. Totally fine. Definitely airtight. And it's welded. I got no doubt that it's welded. I need to take my cutting wheel around just this lip of my coupler thing, make sure I got room for the clamp. That's sorted. Just get it cleaned up. I'll throw some paint over the weld. You'll never know it happened. If you guys see me at IFO, come take a look at the throttle body. So it's a new night, and today at work, I took the compressor housing off the turbo and into work, and I cut down the outlet here. So it's nice and short. And I also trimmed down and cleaned up this little adapter. You can see my little blue marks there that I made in it. We're gonna be welding this just like that. And that is going to point our turbo outlet right in the direction towards where we need it to go for the intercooler. So my goal tonight is to get this welded on the turbo, get the turbo tapped for the boost reference port, and hopefully figure out what I need to do next on the pipe side of things. Throttle body's done, it just needs some paint. So I got her all welded up, and look at that. Look at that. Would you believe the same guy that did that weld also did this one? Ah, well, that's the way it goes, boys. Anyway, got her all welded up. We have nice ample space between our oil drain and our header. This is quite a bit of space there, and I can, I might have to clock this depending on how we end up with the piping, but I think we're in pretty good shape right there. So now I need to weld on a coupler thing here, a coupler collar or whatever. And then I can start kind of mapping out to this guy here and same thing over there. So let's kind of keep plugging along here and get done what we can. Ooh, I need to put a reference on this real quick though. So let me knock that out real quick. Whew, boys, it's been a long night, long week. Oh man, it's been a lot of work out here lately. But we are in full-on fabrication mode, and I made this sweet little pipe, this little charge pipe, and it's just kind of loosely in here. We're gonna have a HD coupler clamp here and here. This one, I still need to fully weld this one for the intercooler side. This is attached to the intercooler, and yeah, so that went pretty good. It took a couple tries. This was my first try at the lower pipe. And I think I found a decent method. Honestly, you guys, most of my fabrication, and forgive me if this is stating the obvious, but most of my fabrication I do just by eye. I just eyeball stuff. It's kind of hard, in my mind, to measure something that curves, like this pipe here. So I kind of just look at it and I'm like, well, let me cut this piece like this, and then I start with one piece, and then we kind of just, well, let me see how to do that. So I had a hard time working the geometry out on this bottom pipe. It helps that my intercooler's kind of flexible. I can move it a little tiny bit, and I'll need to anytime I want to take this pipe off. Because another thing you got to consider when you're doing HD clamps is this pipe is trapped between this and this. When you have your couplers in a straight line with each other, you got nowhere to like rotate or separate. So literally, to remove this pipe, I'll have to loosen the intercooler and slide it towards the front of the car a little bit to clear and come out of that coupler. Now, if you had like a 90-degree setup, like if I would have put the coupler here, then it'd be easy. I would take this clamp off, just pop that off, slide it away, get it off the throttle body. But just the shape of this pipe would have made that a pretty tricky piece to make and bend, and so I decided to just attach this one permanently to the intercooler, and I think it worked out pretty good. It looks pretty good, you know, my usual little blobby welds down here. Some areas went a little better than others, but looks good to me. Last night, this is what I got done. So this is the compressor housing, obviously, and I got my adapter welded on there. Just a bunch of clean, brand new aluminum, gave it a good wire brushing, and it welded really nice. I got my reference port on there. I already got the coupler welded on there. So this, I know this is goofy, this big giant horn coming off this little tiny turbo. I hope this turbo does what I want it to, but we'll find out. Anyway, let me just carefully get this over my wheel there. Just kind of stick it on, it stays nicely. So that is just great. That's just great. I can kind of clock this a little as needed for my final fitment. I could bolt this on now because I'm done with it, but I'm keeping it loose. So if I cut a pipe that's just, you know, a little off over here, then I can tweak that. But now all I gotta do is weld a coupler end here, make like a, I don't know, a 15-degree bend here, and connect those two together. I don't think I'm gonna need to do much here. I'm just gonna be like, done. All right, y'all, this is one of my last updates here. Got my charge pipe made, temp sensor, and blow-off valve. Check this out. Oh, made in the USA, dude. Bet y'all never thought you'd see the day that I put a tile blow-off valve. I'm pretty sure that's Tile China. I don't think that's Tile the brand. And made in USA, I seriously doubt it. But it's gonna work. Hopefully it won't leak and won't be a problem. I've had pretty good luck with the super cheap blow-off valves in the past. And this is a different style. Maybe this one will sound cool. It is kind of a tile-based design. But this puppy's fully welded. This pipe right here is fully welded. For the other side, the intercooler is fully welded, and I have just gotten done flushing the shit out of it with water to hopefully get any remaining metal debris out of it. And oh, one last thing I just did was make a little dump pipe for the wastegate. Just all it's gonna do is just shoot straight at the ground. Nothing too fancy there, and you won't ever see it anyway. So I just kind of threw it together, and boys, it's time to get these pipes on the car, because once these pipes are on the car is technically done. Technically. Let's see what we got on the list. I need some new front tires. Hopefully I can get that sorted out before next weekend. IFO's 1 week away. Today's Saturday. IFO's 1 week from tomorrow. Let's see. I wanted to put a heat shield on the battery, but you know, my down pipe really affords a lot of space. That may not even be necessary. Still wouldn't be a bad idea though. So we'll kind of see. I'll probably just give the battery an old touch test after a drive and see if it feels like it's really hot. I do still need to tee in the dump hose for the transmission dump. I don't know that I'm going to use a dump. I don't know that I'm going to need a dump. I don't know if a dump's even going to help if I find that I do need it. But as of right now, I don't have room to run the same tee I used to on the Lexus. This is a kit I took off the Lexus. There's not enough room in the tunnel to put in the normal spot, so I'm going to have to locate it somewhere else. So that's probably a job for later on when we're really dialing the car in. Fab intake pipes, done. Fab exhaust pipes, done. I was going to move the seat a little closer to the steering wheel just for comfort reasons. We'll see if we have time for that too. Wastegate dump tube, done. Only thing I have not touched on yet is the catch can. I don't really have a plan for that yet. I got the old one out of the Z. Same when it's been running, this little homemade turd here. That's not a big deal. I'll run those bastards into a Gatorade bottle if I need to get through IFO. That's pretty low importance, but enough talking. Let's freaking put these pipes on and see how everything looks, and then see how this thing runs. I have to go drive this car. I've not driven it yet. IFO is in 1 week. Oh boy, hope no surprises come up. So that's all, guys. I'm gonna try to get all you guys up to speed before the date of IFO. It is Sunday right now, 1 week until import face-off. I'll tell you right now, the car's running. I got it moving around, but there's a lot of tuning that needs to get done to get this thing dialed in. At this point, I'm not sure what class we're even gonna be able to be competitive in, because the car is very untested. It's been raining like crazy here in Texas, so I'm getting few opportunities to actually drive it. I'm gonna work on that this week. There's gonna be one more video coming at you before Sunday this weekend, because I want everything to be real time going into the event. So keep an eye out on that, and we'll see you in a couple of days.